What's up, guys? Thomas Mott here alongside Josh Davis, and we are a little bit past due, but come on, it's only 12 minutes. It's not too bad. We're live, ready to rock on a Wednesday edition of the Wednesday Linc Live. Josh, a lot going on. What's up, man?
Yeah, a lot is going on. I appreciate you waiting on me because honestly, I will take the blame for this one.
Not a problem.
I don't want to blame it on the kids or anything necessarily, but just life gets crazy and everything else. So
You're a
it's one of
dad of
those days.
two.
But
You're
we're
a dad
here
of two.
nonetheless.
It
So
happens.
yeah, there you go. But no, I appreciate it. I'm excited. I don't know about you, but draft night is literally just about a week away now at this point.
Yeah.
It's crazy to say that, but the closer that we get, the more rumored reports, everything else. I know we're going to get into all of that, but I'm getting so excited right now, and especially for the fact that corner might be a possibility. I don't know. Where are you at with all this? I know you talked about it in your show today too, of the possibility of a trade up and everything else, but we're a week away now. And it looks like corner and offensive line are the favorites based on betting odds for what that's worth. But do you have a pick as of today?
You know, I think I officially have decided my best guess for what Philadelphia is going to do. I talked about it on my show today. I think they're trading up. Now, there isn't any cold hard facts, as I mentioned on my show today. It's not like Howie Roseman in his 32-minute press conference today said, hey, we're going to trade up. But, you know, Howie says things here and there that make you kind of go, that's interesting. We circled those, talked about him on the show. And then Adam Schefter on The Fanatic today, he basically said, hey, what has Howie done each of the last couple of years? He's traded up in the first round to go get his guy. I don't think it's going to be anything different in 2024. And so I think with a wealth of knowledge, not just based on those two instances, but a lot more we've seen the past couple of weeks, they're going to move up. Now, are they going to move up to 9 like Bleacher Report's mock trade had them doing with Chicago and giving up a second-round draft pick and a third in 2025 and a fourth or a fifth this past year? I don't think they're going to go that high, Josh. I think they're going to go to 15, 16, or 17, and they're going to get a pass rusher. I really feel like cornerback is a strong possibility, but you are going to see one of those strong pass rushers, whether it's a Latu out of UCLA, whether it's a Jared Verse out of FSU. One of them is going to fall to 15, 16, or 17. The Philadelphia Eagles are going to move up, and they're going to replace Hassan Reddick. That is my best guess. I think corner is your next best option. At the same time, I would be fine with a cornerback. I would be fine with getting Quinyon Mitchell or, Nate Wiggins, or they had the Alabama corner in there as well. The other one opposite of Khalil McKinstry, whose name's blanking on me right now. That's fine, but I think they can get a cornerback in round 2, and I think that pass rusher is going to be all but gone outside of round 1, and I think they're going to go with pass rusher.
That'd be interesting. Also, I mean, if you're feeling that way too, the odds are not too bad. I think it's like plus 240 or something. If you take
not too bad.
Eagles first pick for pass rushers. So, for those that do occasionally drop something on the betting odds there, I don't know. I could certainly see that. It does feel like, to your point, Adam Schefter mentioning it, a trade up feels very likely because how he's done it so many drafts. And I mean, obviously, if you want your guy, if you like your guy, you don't wait. You just, if the draft plays out right, and we've talked about it a number of times, unending until we get to draft night, but it's like the more quarterbacks that come off the board, the better for the Eagles. All of a sudden, to your point, if someone starts falling, then you go up and get that guy from that side. I don't know. I mean, listening to his presser, the comments about cornerback and we've learned some things, and we go back and look at some day 2 picks that didn't hit. It's like, is that we've learned some things and now we're finally ready to invest in the first round because we haven't done it in 20 years? Or is it we've learned some things and we're going to take a day 2 prospect at cornerback? That's what I'm interested to see. I really do hope, like a lot of people, that it's cornerback. But I mean, to your point that you made there, I'm not going to be upset if it's an edge rusher, if it's a playmaker, someone who can help on the defensive side of the ball. It's a little bit less enticing if we draft someone that, I'm not saying it's a bad pick, but like we've said a number of times, offensive line, it makes logical sense, but it's not the fun pick, and it's not the exciting pick of saying, hey, we need that now. But I don't know. I mean, Howie did make a really great point, I thought, of hey, you can do it 2 ways. You can do it where you draft a guy and say, hey, this person did it that way, and you tell them, so kind of more of like a audible learner, versus bring him on board and say, here you go. Like Lane Johnson's still here. You will be replacing him, but not for a year or 2, but now you get to watch him learn from it. And Cam Jurgens, he spoke about how great that was for him to learn behind Kelsey. Eagles have done it a number of times. So it does make a lot of sense. But I'm kind of on that same point of get somebody on the defensive side. First round, get defense.
I was going to say tackle's tough. It's tough for me simply due to the fact that I need someone who can play this year. And Howie talked about that again today. You can either go ahead and get somebody who's, plug and play ready, or you can go ahead and wait and have him sit a year, essentially what Nolan Smith did, and that's fine. Tyler Steen basically did it this past season as well, and that's not a problem either. But I think as Howie Roseman looks around this roster, he made the point that you get as many people in free agency to plug as many holes as possible, then you get best available in the draft, which I think is going to be their overall plan. But when you look at this roster, you can get a plug-and-play defensive edge rusher to immediately get an impact, whether Jared Verse, let's just say it's him, turns out to be fantastic or a little bit slower, he's going to be able to play. An offensive lineman probably isn't going to play, and I really think Tyler Steen is going to start, and you mentioned it. He now have one of the starting offensive line lockers, which isn't a guarantee, but still, it's a good indication. They gave Jason Kelsey's locker to Cam Jurgens. It's kind of a rite of passage to get a starting offensive lineman's overall roster, and so there's no guarantee, especially a tackle is going to start year one, just due to the fact you have two starting tackles. Do you want to convert him to guard, then move him back to tackle? It's a different debate. A cornerback has the potential to start in year one, but I think we're all hoping and praying James Bradberry isn't as bad as he was this past season, which is a massive if. But even if he can't go, you already have Keely Ringo. Isaiah Rodgers at one point, hopefully any day now, is going to go ahead and get reinstated by the league. You're going to have cornerback options there. The one position that they lost people at the entire offseason was defensive end. They're essentially pass rusher. They lost Hassan Reddick, and so I see them going up and getting somebody, and there are three, in my opinion. You can make the argument for Chop Robinson. He's a little more raw, but there are three pass rushers in Verse, Turner, and Latu who are ready to go week one for a football team that, as I said earlier, Howie looks around and goes, Josh, the NFC is ours for the taking. The NFC East is truly the Eagles for the taking. You got to beat up on the Packers, you got to worry about Kirk Cousins and the Falcons. There isn't a lot of teams, the Lions, that you actually can be scared of. Go get somebody who can win right now and also win in the future, and that for me is pass rusher.
There's definitely a lot of potential there. And again, to your point, it's like Fangio has the ability to turn this defense better, even if you say, okay, hey, we lost some guys and we had Fletch retire and all this other stuff, like losing Hassan Reddick. He's got the ability. But yeah, go get him one more prospect, someone who can make an impact very early on, but also doesn't have to have that. I don't know. You get the project, to your point. Like the guy who's got to wait a year or 2 years before you really see them take off. And you're right. I mean, you've got to trade up for a talent like that. So we'll see. It would be nice. I'm holding on to corner. Shout out to everybody in the chat, by the way. If you haven't hit the like button, we appreciate that. Seeing all the comments. Dylan says Josh and Thomas the GOAT, so we appreciate that, Dylan. You're the man. We got a Chiefs fan hanging out. Ian, we appreciate it. This is not the Chiefs channel, but we do appreciate you hanging out with us. Frank from Philly, David Ertz, also Donovan, the $5 super chat here, said if I was a betting man, and I am, I'm picking corner. Howie is being unorthodox this season. It's a fair point. He's been very strange, very unorthodox for Howie so far. So do you want to buck the trend?
The unorthodox pick would be wide receiver. If there was a pick that would make us all go like really jaws hit the floor, it's not linebacker, it's not pass rusher, it's not corner, and it's not even offensive lineman, it would be Brian Thomas. We just saw that there, the LSU wide receiver. It'd be Xavier Worthy. It'd be the other receiver from Texas. It'd be one of the Washington receivers. That would be where we would go, wow, that's very unorthodox. But I think that leads us right into Devonta Smith's press conference yesterday, where honestly, it was very refreshing. I think Smitty does so many things really, really well. I think he's one of the most well-spoken wide receivers in the National Football League. At just speaking his mind, being very, very clear, and being very professional. The Alabama Coach Saban aura really, it goes through all the players. Tua was great at the podium. Most of the Bama guys are fantastic. Smitty's great. And I loved at the very end, and I talked about it on my show, I think it was today, actually. The very, very end, he's basically asked, hey, you now have two wide receivers on this roster. You're paying $25+ million a year to both you and A.J. Brown. There's going to be questions about targets and who gets this and who gets that. And he went on to Fron for about 2 minutes explaining that I'm best friends with A.J. Brown. My two babies, his baby and my baby, were on FaceTime together. FaceTiming literally last night. We talk every single day, and we get excited when the other person has a big game, and that's how the Eagles have been. You saw A.J. Brown during that 5-6 game stretch, $125 a game. Smitty was a little bit more quiet. Smitty more strong towards the second half of the season. They both go off of each other, and so while I definitely think wide receiver is off the board for me and most people, that's why it'd be the most surprising one for me to go ahead and take, because it really feels like, even for the people in our comment section who say A.J. Brown is gone after 2025, which I don't believe, but people, I'm sure you've seen the comments, have said that. I just don't see wide receiver on day one or day two. It's a day three thing for me, and that would be the most surprising one for all of us.
Yeah, that I do agree. That would be the most shocking. I'm starting to see a few more mock drafts, which is interesting as far as, like actual uh, mock drafts taking wide receiver for the Eagles in the first round, which is, again,
Sure.
strange because, and yeah, you're getting closer to the draft. So, you start doing crazy things anyway on the mock drafts, maybe. But it is interesting. But if that were actually to happen, I'm with you. I'm like, that would be too surprising, too shocking. There's a lot of
Crazy.
talent that you can get in the second round, third round selections. If you trade back, gather up some more picks for the Eagles there, that would seem more realistic. So that's kind of what I lean towards. But to your point, I mean, yeah, like Smitty, he's the man, like being able to celebrate other
It's
people's
great.
successes, like he's saying, alpha dog, being at that spot. It's also, I mean, reminiscent too, like kind of tandem there of N'Kobe Dean talking and kind of sharing the influence of a Devin White. Like I see similarities in what he was talking
Hmm.
about, and also Smitty and AJ saying, like, we're not shying away from it. Do we both want the ball? Yeah, absolutely. And that's the mindset you want.
Yeah.
And to the same side, N'Kobe Dean saying, like, yep, boots off. We're getting close to 100%. And then ask about Devin White, and he goes, we're both dogs. Like, whether I play Mike or Will, I don't care. I'm going to be productive. He's going to be productive. We're going to push each other. So I love that tandem on both sides. And I think that competitiveness, that passion, that fire is only going to grow throughout the team. And, the hope is that you have the right coordinators now, which I believe that we do. You believe that we do. But now we just got to see it. But I think that the players, you can start feeling or buying into this, like, okay, now we should be solidified here. We're going to make an impact and see where that goes. So shout out to, actually, got Fitness Warrior gifting 5
Saw
memberships
that.
to people. There you go. Hey, appreciate
Sh-
that. Dylan, Jazz, Benjamin, and BMO Careful. You got a membership.
Scotty Kinjo, a shout out from Honolulu, Hawaii. Great spot. I'm trying not to nitpick too much for them after the draft. It's all going to translate on the field. Go Birds. That is a good point. That's the one
Yes.
thing where the only thing that we've poo-pooed is offensive tackle. I mean, we just talk about wide receiver, but tackle is something that's not a sexy pick in the first round, but it is really hard to get upset at a first-round draft pick until you actually see him play. I mean, what you really should do as an Eagle fan is whoever they take, you should be 100% bought in and think he's the greatest pick ever in the history of the National Football League until he proves to you that he's Danny Watkins or he's Jalen Reagor or he's not one of the greatest, first-round Marcus Smith that the Eagles have taken. So either way, we're all pumped about it. We're also pumped, and Josh, I was going to tell you this before the show, but we didn't have time. Speaking of Devonta Smith, we will be giving away 2 tickets to Devonta Smith's charity softball game during our NFL draft stream on Thursday night. So, want to go to that on June 29th. I got word from some promoters there I'm in contact with. We're going to be giving away 2 tickets to the charity softball game in Allentown or Allen Park. I forget. Coca-Cola Park in Allentown is where it's at. So be with another reason to be with us during the draft night because obviously we're going to be giving away that and a bunch of other stuff as well. So be sure to go ahead and subscribe and stay tuned.
Sweet. That is awesome. Yeah, no, I was wondering where that was going, but now that you've let everyone know, that is awesome. Along with the jerseys that we're going to give away and everything else on draft night. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a blast. Last year was, I mean, gosh, we had like 1,000, more than that, maybe, people that hung out kind of consistently throughout the draft. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I don't think it's going to be a boring one. I know that we have to technically wait till 22, but like we were talking about earlier, it feels like you won't. It'll be maybe earlier than this, but in my mind, I'm thinking 15, 16, it's going to start heating up. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, here you go. Eagles are trading up. They're making a move.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. That'll be good.
What do you think of Jalen Hurts' press conference today? I'm sure you're going to talk about it in a show either tonight or tomorrow. I'm going to get into it on my show tomorrow. But Hurts had, everyone's in the building for OTAs. We're getting a lot more interviews than I expected. I mean, you got Cam Jurgens today. You got Jalen Hurts. You had Smitty yesterday. You had, GM and head coach. Jalen Hurts, I thought, had a couple of little things that were interesting. He talked about Brian Johnson getting fired. He raved about Brian Johnson, which I'm trying to decide if I believe that it's more, him and Brian Johnson go way back. He's not going to bad talk him even if the offense was bad, or if he believes that Brian Johnson wasn't the issue. And I know it's, 2023 is 2023, and Smitty said that in his press conference, but I'm curious your thoughts on that exact quote from Jalen Hurts where he was really praising Brian Johnson and saying he's going to be great wherever he goes, and all of us sit back and say, wasn't he the main problem last year?
It's true. Yeah. I mean, and yes, hearing the press conference, it's interesting because you speculate and we'll never know for sure. But to your point, it's like he talks up Brian Johnson, he even went as far as saying like, hey, is he going to be head coach in the league? Believe in him there. So he might be. He very well could be. I think that he was certainly hamstrung to a certain extent by Sirianni, but, we won't really know until, I guess he gets his next gig as far as a specific offensive coordinator role goes. And then if he can take that from there, then maybe he's better on that side. But yeah, it's kind of one of the takeaways for me really was like Jalen saying what he did about the revolving door of coaches,
That
which
was
was
interesting too.
perhaps a little bit, I don't want to say necessarily like out of character for Jalen, but usually it's I'm not going to give you a whole lot, not really going to complain one way, and it wasn't really complaining. So again, that's maybe a poor word choice, but it's still like going as far as saying like I yearn for more continuity. I
That's what it felt
yearn
like.
for more consistency. Like
Yeah.
that's getting borderline there of going like, yeah, it's a little bit frustrating that every single year I'm having to deal with a new offensive coordinator, and I would be frustrated. I think a lot of people would, because you don't have to play a sport to realize the continuity is an important factor. Like just take your job, for example. Those that have had bosses that have every single year change, usually, I mean, I've been in that experience. I don't hang around that company. Like it's looking to go
Yeah.
get a job somewhere else, because it's hard to be able to like, all right, hey, what's the expectations? Am I supposed to be doing this? Should I be doing that? We're changing our line of thinking. Change can be good to a certain extent, but in the National Football League, I mean, we talked about it a number of times, even during the fantasy draft that we did last year. But it's like quarterback, first year offensive coordinator doesn't necessarily always provide the recipe for success. So
Right.
I could see where he'd be a little bit on the fence of like saying, yeah, let's maybe keep these guys. But then he also emphasized saying like, I get it though. If we win, then most likely they're gone. So it's just kind of the reoccurring state of things that you're going to be in. So it was, like I say, interesting to hear Jalen actually voice it, because you and I have said it on a number of shows, live shows, our own individual ones, and tons of
Mm-hmm.
people in the comment section. But it's like, okay, so he feels the same way. Now, is there any way though that you get out of this? Because to your point, or to his point, it's like the options are you win and Kellen Moore's gone, or
Yeah.
you lose and Sirianni's probably gone, and then maybe Kellen Moore is upgraded into the head coach role. But that's the only way in my mind that you keep the offense consistent. So I don't know. You're kind of in between a rock and a hard place, quite honestly.
Yeah, there really isn't a solution. Like you mentioned it. If the Eagles win a Super Bowl this year, they get close, your coordinators are basically gone. And it is something that is a little bit concerning that you have first-year offensive coordinators in Philadelphia. Now, both these guys are offensive defense coordinators. They've been coordinators their entire lives, so it's a little bit less dramatic than when Steichen and Gannon
Mm-hmm.
were there. But the 2021 Eagles were very different from the 2022 Eagles, and that was year one and year two with Steichen and Gannon as your coordinators. Now, the rosters are very different. You can make the argument there, but just making sure that
True.
Jalen Hurts is comfortable and whatever Kellen Moore is going to throw at him in this offense is going to be the main focus. And I think it's why the Philadelphia Eagles added extra OTA dates. They added more go-ahead overall training activities, and most everybody's there. I mean, I can't see anybody who's not in the building. I don't know if A.J. Brown is there. I think he might be. I haven't seen him in any of their promotional stuff. He wasn't in any of their, welcome to the building sort of thing. He has not done a press conference yet, although if he would, I don't think he would in like the media anyway. But I think basically everybody's there. Of course, Jeff McClain said that anyone who's not there, they were told well ahead. It's not a surprise. It is voluntary. I'm not trying to make it like a AJ's not there. But I think the vast
Right.
majority of their players are there on offense and defense, and they're there because they want to figure out this offense and defense as quickly as possible. That way there isn't any sort of lull or rust, because week one, you got to take on what could be an NFC title game matchup. It could be an NFC playoff seeding matchup against the Green Bay Packers, and they got to hit the ground running and hit the ground as fast as possible. And any sort of rust because you don't know what the offense is something we got to avoid, and I think that's why they're all there right now.
It's a fair point. That's actually a really good point you talk about, because you're adding something that they don't typically do. It's adding some dates further on down the line. They're going to have the mini camp and some additional days as far as just OTAs, and so it's like it does make sense because of those coordinators, and you want to get all on the same page.
Right.
I'm trying to, not regardless of the cluster that is the Brazil game and the rumors of like, can they wear midnight green and all
Can they
that.
wear
That's a
green?
whole
Yeah.
mess of who knows what that is, and if they can't, then good job NFL for planning that one through. But regardless, like that's going to be a very difficult game. I mean, it doesn't really matter, in my opinion, like how we feel or look now versus after the draft or versus after training camp, whatever. The Green Bay is going to be a very difficult game. And a lot of
Yeah.
it, to your point of, you got to get things under wraps of like, okay, what is this offense going to be? What is the defense going to be? Now, it's a similar system. It's still the guy versus just a guy trying to run the Fangio system, but you got to get everybody on the same page. And so I'm trying to like, I don't know, somewhat temper expectations a little bit and not saying that I'm like, oh, let's prepare to lose the first game, but it's like
No.
not expecting just rolling out there and being like, oh, we are firing on all cylinders. The offense is fantastic. Jalen is hitting everything on the money. The defense is clicking. It's all great. it could be, a little bit of a clunky game, at least first in the first half. So, we see that in a lot of openers for teams in general, just because they're getting caught up to speed. But that'll be I think the hardest stretch in my mind, at least just to kind of get rolling, is going to be the first 4 or 5 weeks, really. Then once you get past that point, you're like, okay, we're full speed. We've been going at this thing for so long. It is what it is. And so the hope is you kind of get rolling by that point and you're good to go. But yeah, it's a great point. You want to have as many dates as you can, learn everything, get the continuity, have the collaboration between the guys, and make sure we're all on the same page. So I'm hopeful they can do that.
My name's Dylan. Has a really good super chat here. He says the Eagles community appreciates you too. Appreciate you guys as well. If Howie trades up, what would you guys think of taking Latu? If not Latu, who would you guys want to see picked? Latu is fascinating, and you see Ultra say no Latu. Latu is going to be a bust. Latu is basically the Michael Penix of pass rushers, right? He has all of the size, speed, strength. He had a ton of sacks at UCLA, 23 and a half, I think, the past 2 seasons. But he's coming off a neck injury, which was 2 years ago, but it was supposed to end his NFL career. Michael Penix is the same stuff. He was fantastic last year, makes it to the national championship game. He's also surrounded by a ton of other great players. That factors into it, but he has a lot of injury history, especially with the lower body. And so where does Penix go is the same thing with Latu. You and I both like Latu. I really think that he's a very, very good player. I think the problem for me is Jared Verse and Dallas Turner are better. And so if one of those two is available and Latu, then I go the other way if you want a pass rusher. But if Latu is there and the other two pass rushers are off the board, he, to me, is better than Chop Robinson, and he's the third best pass rusher in this draft. And so you make the argument that he's probably more likely if the Eagles go to 15, 16, or 17 to get. But I do think if you're asking me Latu versus Quinyon Mitchell or Tyrion Arnold, you'd probably lean towards Mitchell and Arnold if you couldn't get Verse or Turner.
I'm right there with you. Yes, absolutely. Quinyon Mitchell is immediately for me, so that it hasn't changed, even though Tyrion Arnold is top 30 visit for the Eagles, so it's maybe more realistic that they're going that direction. But still, I'm not coming off of the Quinyon Mitchell. Appreciate it though, Dylan. Yes, for the super chat there. I would say similar to what you're talking about there, Thomas. It depends on what pick there, quite honestly. But if it's Latu or Quinyon Mitchell, yes, I would agree. You're still trading up in that sense. It's interesting because, like, as far as the pass rush win rate, which is very telling, not everything, but it's very telling for college prospects, it's like Latu is through the roof. Like, there's no one closer than him. So that as far as the pass rush array of moves, being able to make an impact from day one, what his ability and talent is, I think that if all things were equal, which again, they're not, and that's why it's the draft, but if all things were equal and we didn't have that medical history, the medical history with his, then you could very well say he might be moved up higher on this board. But because of that injury history, I don't know, like if teams are taking a look at him, because he's got a ton of top 30 visits, which makes sense. He's a stud, and also the injury, so you get your doctors to look at him. But if teams are taking a look and saying, we don't know, like this is kind of concerning, whatever they're seeing under the microscope, then maybe he starts falling. But it'll be kind of a scary situation because, and immediately he talked about the whole fireman thing, and people bring up Danny Watkins continually, but it's not the same type of scenario there. However, there's always the emphasis of, it's not like a guy had an injury, it's a possible career ending. And when you hear that, it's like, okay, that was very significant. So how close are we to like one bad hit? And I know it could be for everyone, but if you already experienced something like that, then there's a little bit of anxiety on my side of going like, but how close are we to that potential? So I got to trust, obviously, if the Eagles make that move, the doctors, the medical staff have done their due diligence, and there's not a concern on that side. But as far as just productivity and talent on the field, I don't think it's questioned. So wouldn't mind it. But again, my overall pick continues and will remain Quinyon Mitchell if you're going to trade up.
Carson VR says, I deeply appreciate y'all's dedication updating us with the latest Eagles news. Appreciate that. That's our goal. Y'all think we will go over or under our projected 10.5 wins? Vegas says we will get #GoBirds. It's going to be very, very interesting in terms of over or under 10.5, because 11 is probably the safe bet right now if we feel good, but they also are going to have a little bit of rust, maybe trying to figure out new offensive system, defensive system. I think the schedule is not bad in terms of the opponents you're going to play. We got to see when they are. I popped it up right here. Obviously, the Packers are a tough one. Falcons are a little harder now because of Kirk Cousins, but you also have Carolina. You have the Giants twice. You obviously have, the Saints in there as well. You play the Bucks, Commanders twice. The Steelers aren't going to be that good. There are only a couple of really prime matchups, and it's the Packers, and then obviously it's probably the Cleveland Browns, Cincinnati Bengals, and Baltimore Ravens. Other than that, though, the rest of the games are pretty winnable. So 4 games that are a toss-up, and the rest are going to be, I'd say, Eagles favored in, if that's fair. I don't think Jacksonville is going to be, fantastic this coming year. The same thing goes for, Bucks and for instance. But 10.5, 11 wins, it's fine. It's just a matter of how much further will 11 wins be in the NFC playoff race, right? Is 11 wins a 3 seed? Is it a 2 seed? Or is it a 5 seed? That's going to be the real question for me, because I don't know who I think's the best team in the NFC right now. I mean, the sexy pick is the Packers because of the playoff run that they have, but It kind of feels like the Packers are due for a little bit of a step back. Like they were struggled early on, and then they got their stride, and then they're going to try and be overhyped this year. Do they take a step back a little bit? I don't know. Same thing goes for the Lions. I think are going to take a little bit of a step back. There isn't a team like the Chiefs that sit in the AFC, and you go, wow, this NFC team is going to dominate people. The Eagles have the best roster. I don't think anyone's arguing that. They have the best offense for sure. It's really not that close. The closest team is probably the Lions, but it's just going to be very interesting to see how the schedule plays out, who they got to play, when they got to play them, and also what the rest of the East looks like. But I would say over 10.5 right now because it's April and we need to be positive. We can't be negative, right?
True. Yeah, we got to be positive. But it's like what did Jacoby say in his presser? He was like optimistic realism. I think that's what he said. He kind of said that about himself. But like it's kind of where I'm at, I suppose. It's like, yeah, we're going to be optimistic, but let's also try to have some realism to it as well. So I've said 11 wins as of right now. I mean, that feels pretty confident, not over the top, expecting maybe some growing pains, something that goes through there. And we'll see. But yes, to your point, 11 wins. I don't know. I mean, it's a question of how far they get you. Is it going to be just a lot of parity throughout the league, or is it going to be a couple guys that take off or a couple teams that take off and all of a sudden it's like, well, there's 12, 13, 14 wins even for someone in the NFC. It's hard to say. I don't count out the 49ers, of course, because, they've got Brock Purdy and all those. Brandon Ayuk getting traded, that's I think he is a whole other story. So
Antonio Brown and CTE ESPN has nailed a lot of stuff, and he had him going to the Steelers weeks ago, and that was reported today. The Steelers are trying hard. So when in doubt, I actually DM'd AB just to see if he would come on the show, and he responded. So I got a tweet back from Antonio Brown, and he said, "How much money you got?" And I was like, yeah, I don't have any. Sorry I asked AB, but yeah. Fun fact: it's interesting to see who responds to Twitter DMs, and AB did respond. But yeah, I don't have money to pay him to come on my Eagles show. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right. What do you charge by the minute? You could say like, I can imagine for 2 minutes, you get in 2 questions. How much would that cost?
Mega Philly fan says, do you think we will trade for Surtain? No. I'm talking about that on tomorrow's show, but Adam Schefter said he's heard absolutely nothing. And Benjamin Albright, to me, is the one Denver reporter who really has nailed everything going on with the Denver Broncos the past 2 seasons. Great follow on Twitter. He has said time and time again, Sutton is probably going to be moved. Judy would be moved. Judy was moved. He has said they're not trading Surtain, and I don't see them trading Surtain. But there are reports, and I did a show on this 2 weeks ago, that's basically saying that the Broncos are desperate to get a quarterback. And so if you need draft picks, then trading away Surtain is possible. But I think they would just package Surtain with the move to go up to 3, 4, or 5 for the Cardinals, for instance, and go ahead and get rid of him. So I think it's very unlikely that Surtain gets traded. If he does, Philadelphia does not make any sense for Denver to do it. It just doesn't, unfortunately, because I mean, I would love him. Yeah,
he'd be great. He'd be game changer, no doubt. I mean, everybody understands that with the ability that he brings, and heck, it's even a better fit than it's basically the best fit, because you're talking about it. It's like you get PS2, you have him with Christian Parker, who was his DB coach, Fangio system. He's familiar with that. Yeah. He can play it really well. So it makes a ton of sense in all sides. The question, compensation wise, you got to trade, give up quite a bit, do a contract there. I get that the Broncos are maybe considering, what if there was a great offer on the table and try to free up some space. But yeah, to your point, I mean, like Albright said, and just reading between the lines, it feels very unlikely regardless of those reports, but you kind of get the extra emphasis with the recent speculation, the recent reports coming in. So we'll see. Does James Bradberry, does he revisit the all-pro not the all-pro status, but, realistically, do you think that James Bradberry could be?
I do.
I don't know. With the safety play will be better. Like what form of James Bradberry are we going to get this season?
You are not going to get last year's James Bradberry again. I
That's
feel
fair.
very, very confident that you're not going to get that at all. You are going to have a quality starting cornerback on the outside, and you have to go through his history. He's been really good. I mean, literally, he's been fantastic his entire career except for last season. And sure, outside cornerback, maybe, the Super Bowl play, the holding against Juju kind of lingered over him, and then the hype was there, and it just didn't really step up. I think Matt Patricia and Sean Asai did James Bradberry zero favors. And again, James Bradberry's got to play. He's a cornerback. Sometimes he's got to line up and ball, and he never did. But I don't think you're going to see any scenario where James Bradberry is benched at any point during this coming season. Now, if they draft a cornerback in the top 10 or top 15 or top 20, if they move up for a cornerback, then sure, you can really see an open competition there. But if they do not get a cornerback in round 1, I think you're going to see Bradberry be the outside starting cornerback, and I'm confident in it. Now, I love Ringo, but James Bradberry, you got to go back. I mean, the Super Bowl year, James Bradberry was fantastic, and that's only 2 years removed. And so unless he just has hit a massive wall and can't return, which is possible, I do think there's a chance that he can be at least serviceable in terms of a cornerback on the outside.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, I'm not quite there. I do appreciate and like the optimism. I am more of it's Keely Ringo that's starting or draft your starters. So
I understand.
I may be burned too much from last season with what I saw, but it is a fair point because better safety play, defensive coordinator, change of scenery in terms of the scheme itself, and actually having some confidence of someone who knows how to run that system better than what we had last season. So maybe it ends up being better. And maybe I end up being like Deke here, who says, appreciate the 5, says, hi, big fan. Maybe I'm back to being a big fan of James Bradberry. We'll see. But
you never
appreciate
know.
the 5.
You never know. Yep, I appreciate the $5 super chat there. DKT says, always great to see you guys. I think Philly will be the NFC's champions with a good chance to get the 1 seed. Go Birds. There's the optimism that we like to see here on April 17th, which we hopefully agree with, but we love it. Donovan Seward says, excited for Hurts versus Burrow. What's your favorite quarterback matchup this year against Hurts? Hurts versus Burrow is going to be very, very fun. Ooh. Is that one home or away? I can't remember.
That is away, and it is in Donovan's backyard because Donovan is in Cincinnati. I know that, remember, because we were promised a steak dinner if we went to the Cincy game. So,
that also sounds worth it. It'd be fun to go to Cincinnati just to go to the Bengals place and play against Burrow. That could be fun.
I'm just saying, I've never been. I've never been to Cincinnati. I had some family members that loved it. So, and from Donovan's endorsement there, I mean, it's at least worth talking about. We got a long ways till we get there, but if we do a road trip to a game, might be fun.
There aren't a lot of good quarterbacks that the Eagles play. I mean, there are plenty of good quarterbacks. I mean, I think that Jacksonville has a good quarterback. I think Dak is still a good quarterback. I think Cleveland, Deshaun Watson can be a good quarterback. Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. Like, there are some good quarterbacks here. But the 2 best quarterbacks are the AFC North quarterbacks you're going to play, and that's obviously Lamar and Joe Burrow. The rest of this, I mean, Derek Carr, the Rams, I mean, Matt Stafford, but the Eagles have done a pretty good job against Matt Stafford historically. Tampa Bay has given Philadelphia trouble just because, whatever reason, Tampa Bay, but I mean, Baker, it's not that big a deal. Pittsburgh, I mean, we scared of Justin Fields or Mr. Unlimited. Like, there aren't a lot of great quarterbacks here, and it is the perk of not winning the division this past season. It's the perk of not being, the number 1 team in your division, getting a first-place schedule, and the Philadelphia Eagles schedule kind of backs that up. So I would say the Burrow matchup is the best matchup because it's one you don't get very often, and it's a good color mash in terms of green versus orange. But overall, I think them and Lamar are going to be the 2 toughest games. And listen, NFC teams struggle against Lamar Jackson historically because they haven't played against a really big running quarterback. Philadelphia's defense plays against Jalen Hurts. Now, he's not as fast as Lamar Jackson. He's the next best running quarterback, in the league, and I think the defense could have a better chance against him than other NFC teams.
It'll be exciting. I will definitely love both of those. Like you said, AFC North matchups should be fun. Also, Jazz Fusion saying love in Brazil. Jordan Love opener there. That should be good to see the Packers, obviously. But yeah, I think I would agree with you as well. I mean, it's very differing play styles, as everyone knows. But you've got Burrow and Lamar Jackson. Those will be tough, and especially an environment in Cincinnati that I think I agree. I mean, that's got to be number 1 in terms of this season and the matchups there. So, right. Yeah. I'm just saying in terms of the rankings there, I think most difficult for me would be Burrow, second most Baltimore, but Baltimore lost a ton. That'll be interesting to see. Do they bounce back in a way of, cause we got poached obviously with our coordinators and people leaving and everything else, but Baltimore, I mean, they're kind of in the same spot. If like, all right, well, your DC went, your DB coach went, you lost some players, like, there's a lot there. They're still going to be good, but it'll be interesting to see from that dynamic.
Carson VR says, who would your pick be at 22? I think if they stay put at 22, it's DeJean or Chop Robinson. Now, Nate Wiggins might be there as well, but it's probably one of those three. If they're going to sit at 22, DeJean is the most mock player to Philadelphia if they stay at 22, and I think rightfully so. You and I both like him more than a lot of our people in the comment section. I think you're going to see Wiggins be there because he's probably the fourth best cornerback. I think I would put Arnold, I'd put Mitchell, and who's the other one that I would put ahead of him? I'm blanking right now on the other cornerbacks. Who's the one I'm missing?
You could go Kool-Aid McKinstry, or you could go with...
so maybe he's the third. Maybe
DeJean,
he's the third.
Or,
yeah.
Okay.
Fair, but I would say those two, and then the pass rusher, Chop Robinson, will probably be there at 22. Those are the three most likely, I would say. And Fatanu, but I don't know if Fatanu's there at 22, so maybe.
If he is, if he is, I mean... Again, we're just total speculation here, and I'd have to see like who all's available. But it feels like if Fatanu's there at 22, you just have to immediately take him. I mean, the value wise, I know we went over the whole like, do we take a guy in the first round that has to sit, or maybe play guard, then maybe play tackle? But as much as Jeff Stoutland enamoration with Troy Fatanu, and bringing him in for a visit and seeing the asset that he is. It feels like most of the rankings, he's somewhere around like that 15 range. If he falls to 22, I think you just don't even blink. You're just like, yep, there it is. There's too much value with him at that point. So, but I agree. I'm with you as far as Mitchell. I know some people say like this slight frame and everything like that, but to me, I don't see the same aspect as like an Emmanuel Forbes, because it's always the comparison, like player comps, and are they going to be the similar type of player, struggle or whatever on that side. But to me, it's not as much. So yeah, I would agree. It's Quinyon Mitchell 1, Terrion Arnold for me 2, Mitchell or Wiggins as 3. And then I don't know. I mean, I'd like to see Cooper DeJean just as the like hybrid versatility that he brings, the athlete on the field and everything on that side. So probably 4 there. And I'm not as high as some people on Kool-Aid McKinstry, which I know I've gotten hate for mock drafts and everything else that I've put up there. But that's the beauty of this time of the season. Can we just say this? Like, we appreciate all the back and forth. We appreciate the comments and everything. There's no need to hate on like, we're an idiot, you're an idiot, whatever. Like, everyone can have an opinion, because just as much as the experts who make the mock drafts board are at best 50% correct, probably. Like, come on, we could all have an opinion. We could all say who we like. At the end of the day, who really knows? And we'll just talk about it. I just had to put it out there because it feels like we're getting a lot more of those in the comment section recently. So
everybody's an expert. Everybody's an expert.
Everyone is, yes.
It's well said, because we really don't know, right? Josh doesn't know. I don't know. Adam Schefter doesn't know. Todd McShay doesn't know. We all have our best educated guesses on who we think is good and who we think is bad. In the end, we've been wrong about a lot in the past. We've been right about a lot in the past. And that's just how it is, because that's how the NFL draft is. It's the ultimate crapshoot. And that's what makes it must-see TV or must-watch live stream for us on Thursday night, because we don't know where they're going to go. And Howie said it today during the press conference. There are always moves that shock him. He has a good idea of who he thinks is going to go in the top 25. He said that today. But he said every year, you can't predict it. And Howie's like, I mean, you talk about in the know. Howie Roseman is probably pretty in the know with most of the draft is going to do, and even he goes like, "What? Who's that draft pick there?" And how it goes.
You can tell how much he's been into it by his press conference, because like usually he's a little bit more jovial and excited. Like you can just there was so much of just like he was tired, he was exhausted. Like watching him talk there, I was like, wow, okay, he is working overtime for sure this draft season, which is not surprising. But again, just to emphasize your point there, no one knows what is actually going to take place, and it's the beauty of it. So come hang out with us. If you're not going to, we're going to be streaming.
Full Send Daily, do draft entries pre-Cash App updates still count? Josh, answer that, and I'll explain what's going on the screen here once you do.
Yes, they do. They absolutely count. So either way, whatever you want to do, whatever you prefer, if it is Venmo or Cash App, the link is, or I guess the details in the description. So send it to there, either one, and it works. But yes, they are still going for the NFL Draft League.
There you go. And this is exactly what we're talking about on the screen right here. We have an NFL first-round draft league where you can essentially pick who is going to be in every single pick, and the top person is going to go ahead and get an Eagles jersey of their choice, and we're going to randomly select somebody as well based on, the amount of Venmo. So $1 with Venmo is 1 entry, 5 is 5 entries. That's how it works for our jersey raffle. Just shoot a Venmo to @thePhillySpecial. If you're watching on my show, Josh is the Venmo, and then that's how we work things out. So that is how you go ahead and do it. And once you do, you get to go ahead and be in the draft league. Now, my picks are not necessarily in right now, but you can go ahead and go essentially line by line. I'm trying to show it on my screen, but it's only showing people's names. It's not allowing me to actually show how the picks look, but it's going to be a very fun way to go ahead and try and guess and see exactly who you think is going to be 1 or 2, and if you're 100% right, then you can go ahead and get a jersey. So send the Venmos to Josh @thePhillySpecial right there. You got a bunch of people joining us. It's like 10 people. I have not submitted my picks yet. I'm not submitting them until the day before because I think things are going to change, and I'm trying to get the competitive advantage here. So that's fair. That's my thought process. My picks are not in yet.
Just for what it's worth, though, you can submit them and then go back and change it and submit it again. So, like, for people that don't think, you can alternate until right before the draft. I think it's like an hour before the draft or something that it locks in. So, but
maybe
yes, either way, however you want to do it, that's perfectly fine. Also, just a disclaimer there. You said if someone gets 100% correct, so it's going to be whoever gets the closest amount correct. Right. If someone gets 100% correct, I mean, like, I'll buy you a playoff ticket. I will buy it's not going to happen. But if someone does, good luck to you. I will add that in there. There's an extra incentive. You'll get to come to whatever playoff game you want, and I'll buy you a ticket because that's
there you go.
Good luck.
It's impossible. Devin Lampy says, finally getting off in time to sit down and listen to the stream. There you go. Welcome, Devin. Love what y'all do. Go Birds.
Appreciate
Shout
that.
out Devin getting off work. Listen, the Wednesday Linc does change times because Josh and I have lives outside of YouTube live shows, and Josh does a lot of YouTube live shows, so we got to work through all these different schedules. But sometimes they're later, sometimes they're earlier, but you can always rewatch them. So that also works too. You just don't get to have your comment actively talked about. So, but we appreciate you guys to go ahead and join that. Carson VR, will you guys make a fantasy football league this year? Yes, we're going to do that again. We had a lot of success with the fantasy football league last year.
Absolutely.
And we had a bunch of fun with that one. Josh's team actually did win, which was, we did not plan it that way, but Josh did have a very good team, and my team was terrible. I had the worst team. So Josh won, but we're going to do it again. We're probably going to do more leagues and have a bunch of fun. So obviously, stay tuned for that closer to the actual league.
It's not rigged. It's not rigged, even though I won.
It's hard to rig a fantasy football league, but sure.
The draft was live. We had everything out front and center, above board. People could see it. But yes, my team actually did win. What won it for me actually was the fact that Raheem Mostert went in the 12th or 13th round, and then I was able to pick up Kyren Williams off the waivers. Those two in a 16-team league. It's okay, well, I got solid running back play. So, but yes, we will do that. That'll be fun. Justin, appreciate the 10, says, honestly, if the Eagles make a trade in the first, I would like to like it to be a trade back and grab a corner who fell, or edge like Chop Robinson. Interesting thought. We talked about trading up in this scenario. Is there a world where you like? I was gonna say, is there a world you like? I did a mock draft, which again we appreciate all the back and forth and criticism and critiques and everything. It got obliterated. I'm just trying to say, hey, you know what? Here's a possibility. Even at the very end, I'm like, this is not my ideal scenario. This is just a curious, can we get more draft picks and whatever? But yes, if you trade back, I don't know. Do you have a favorite in terms of a corner? You mentioned Chop Robinson. I think that would be great.
Chop
you
could
trade
be
back and get your edge. But anyone else value-wise? I
think Kool-Aid gives you a lot of value trading back. I see Kool-Aid as an after 25 pick, 25 to 35. I think he could go early in the second round as well. I think he's just not – I don't know how plug-and-play ready he is, and I think that's the one problem with first-round draft picks is you're trying to find plug-and-play ready, even though probably 10 of them are actually plug-and-play ready, not counting quarterbacks. I mean, Nolan Smith was a top first-round draft pick, and he wasn't plug-and-play ready. So we think plug-and-play ready, but 28, 35, it's not necessarily guaranteed to be plug-and-play ready. So I think Chop, I also think Kool-Aid would make some sense there. We have talked a lot about trading back. Philadelphia did it the year they won the Super Bowl. That was the Lamar Jackson pick where they came up to go ahead and get him at 32. Baltimore did. They don't do it a lot. They do a lot more trading back with the second-round picks, the third-round picks, the mid-round picks. First round is where he has his guys and he goes. The only way I see him trading back in round one is if all his guys are gone. And I think I said in my show today, there are at least 8 that are going to be on Howie's board that if he can go get, he's going to get 8 players. One of them is going to be there between 15 and 22. So I find it very unlikely that he doesn't get his guy and he moves back. But Howie does whatever Howie wants, and Howie's Howie. He has fun. So we got to trust whatever he decides to do there. But it'd be interesting to see who falls, especially in this draft, because someone does every single year.
Yeah, I'm with you. Honestly, I think that It's very unlikely, which is why in my scenario, it was a trade back and then trade back into the first round, but I got more picks out of it. So I was like, oh, I got the best of both worlds. We got a first round draft pick and we got more acquisitions there.
Comment section did not like that.
No, they didn't. They didn't like it, which is, whatever. We'll do a different one next time. But it's for entertainment purposes, right? We're killing time and talking about draft potentials because that's basically all that it is. But yes, as far as if you are going to trade back, I don't know. It's not necessarily in the edge category because I agree with what you did on Kool-Aid and the fact that Michael said his name's Kool-Aid, so he's got to be good. I guess if we're going based off of name rankings, but still, talking about edge, Edgerrin Cooper to me feels like all the mock drafts that we do, I'm going to be shocked, and I know that like PFF and PFN. Every mock draft, there's not been a single one that I've done where Edgerrin Cooper is not available at 50.
Right.
But in my mind, and like what a lot of people continue to say, is there's no way that he lasts that long. So realistically, not that the mock draft feels this way, but in the real world scenario, if you're going to trade back, I would just say, hey, you trade back, get some more draft picks, and that should mean you're in great position to get your linebacker. You don't have to stretch really, but it's like, all right, hey, whatever it is, if you trade back to early second round. Edgerrin Cooper's there. If you love him, his versatility on Fangio's defense, because he can be a linebacker, but he also has a lot of good pass rushing ability. He had 8 sacks last season. So it's kind of like that hybrid, not necessarily drafting for someone who's, a plug and play edge, but a plug and play playmaker out there on the field. So I would lean towards that because interesting question. DKT, appreciate the 2, says, do you guys have one person you don't want drafted? The one that I want drafted for sure is Edgerrin Cooper. The one that I don't want drafted, I don't know if I've given that one thought. Really? Bowers. You don't want him drafted in no scenario at all, even if he falls to 22?
No.
Still no?
No, there isn't a scenario where we're spending a first-round draft pick on Brock Bowers. It makes sense for the Eagles. It makes sense for another team. It doesn't make sense for the Eagles. It truly would feel like a wasted pick, and we have had 5 straight first-round tight ends who aren't good. They don't go to Pro Bowls. They don't catch passes. They don't get to into the end zone. It just feels like a wasted pick. And it's nothing against Brock Bowers. I live in Atlanta. All of my friends went to UGA, and we watched a ton of UGA games this past year. I know how good he is. I'm not saying he's not good. Ladd McConkey is fantastic. They don't need Brock Bowers. And I know that's controversial because I got ripped whenever I talked about it on a show a couple of days ago, and people were like, how can you say you don't want Brock Bowers? That would be just incredible. And it's like,
be careful.
If you take Brock Bowers over a cornerback or a pass rusher, it makes absolutely no sense. Then you're basically begging for ball distribution controversy, which we basically already have. You don't need more of that. And you're begging for a defense to give up a lot of points. You've got to get a pass rusher or a cornerback, especially over a tight end. I'm out on Brock Bowers, and I don't think he's going to be there, thankfully, but I'm very much out. Very much out.
Okay. I mean, I can understand that. I can totally get behind it. If he's still there at 22, maybe, but
there's no way.
Again, to your point, it's value wise, but it's not. It doesn't make sense from that side. I don't know. I don't know if there's necessarily one for me.
I know they're gonna hate me. I know they're gonna hate me.
Like you're hating on Brock Bowers, but that's a setup question though. In all fairness, like we appreciate the 2 DKD, but that's a setup question because we're gonna get hated regardless of who I say. Can I just say like I don't want us to draft I really don't want us to draft a quarterback at all. We have plenty. We just traded for Kenny Pickett. Like I'll just say all
wide receiver? What about
yes,
wide receiver?
Definitely draft receiver.
No, at 22. At 22. In my mind, I was thinking first round. At 22.
Yeah.
Because and that's assuming that the great Washington receiver is not going to be there. It's assuming that you're not going to have a chance at the great LSU receiver. It's assuming you're taking like Brian Thomas or Xavier Worthy or Ladd McConkey. To me, those would make no sense either. And I know A.J. Brown's going to be gone in 2 years. 2 years? Goodness gracious, 2 years? That's a long time from now. I'll be 30.
Point, yeah. And to your point, even if we want to go down that line of thinking and live in that world of AJ's going to be gone in 2 years, take someone in the second round. Take him with 50 or 53. You're going to have probably Xavier Legette available or very close to be available. Maybe Ricky Pearsall, Malachi Corley surely will be available there. There's lots of options there that you would take, and you don't have to stretch at 22. So sure, that's fair. Again, we're going to be killed by some of the comments.
They're going to take a wide receiver in this draft. It's just not going to be in the first 2 rounds, in my opinion, because they are primed to go find a wide receiver 3 or 4.
I might disagree with you on I could see it very easily in second round. I know that's kind of crazy because of the team, but the depth of this draft at receiver.
Okay.
I could see it. I could definitely see
the
it second round.
second
I
pick,
agree with you. No first
53
round.
instead of 50. 53 instead of 50.
Yes.
Let's go back 3 picks.
That's fair.
There's no way, by the way, there's no way Howie's picking at 50 and 53. 0% chance. Those picks are going to be, he's going to do something moving with them, either up or down. I would put money on it right now that the Eagles will not be taking both 50 and 53. That doesn't mean they don't have 2 picks in round 2, but I'm guaranteeing you they will not pick at both 50 and 53. There's no way Howie does that. With the trades how he does, 2 picks in round 2 right next to each other, no way. There's no way. I'd put $100 on it right now. No way.
8/31, Wednesday, April 17th. I got to remember this because if they
do, go ahead. There's no way. There is no way.
This,
they are guaranteed to be trading somewhere up or down in round 2. That is there is not.
He is going to do a lot of trading regardless. But yeah,
if
it's that close, you're right. I mean, the only way that he does stay put is 50. He's just waiting. He's kind of playing out the draft. All of a sudden, a guy fell to him, and he's like, "Fantastic, we can get a guy here." And then magically there's another one, but it's so close together. There's no way that you're going to have, here's 2 guys that we didn't expect to be here. And they're just still here now. Let's just go ahead and take them.
Yep. I truly, if you had to 100% force me to guess, they're moving up into the top 15 to 20. I think Seattle at 16 makes a lot of sense. Between 15 and 20, one of the second round draft picks, probably 53, is used to do that. And that means you have, let's say 16, you pick at 50 again, and you probably gave up a later round pick somewhere with the many that they have in the later rounds as well. That's my best guess. They'll go up to get somebody that they love, then they will be there for one of their 2 remaining second round draft picks. They'll take whatever, a wide receiver, hopefully a linebacker, and then they're going to go ahead and move forward. Or they stay put at 22, and they're going to use those 2, 50 and 53, to move up and get Edgerrin Cooper, which would also be fine. Either one of those scenarios is fine with me. I just don't see them staying at 50 and 53. It just doesn't. Howie, it's just not a Howie thing to do. Not a Howie thing to do.
You're right. It will. I will say, if I had to give my preference and kind of being realistic, I would say yes. Trading up first round makes a ton of sense. Howie's very easily could see him doing that because he has a guy he likes. He's going to move up and go get him.
Yeah.
Second round, if magically Edgerrin Cooper is somehow available at 50 and you don't have to trade up, that would be phenomenal. So I'm going to live in this dream world of saying, he is available there at 50. You get Edgerrin Cooper, then you trade back 53. Makes a ton of sense. You get more draft picks. Then I could see your receiver coming off the board. Like a Johnny Wilson. If you trade back to like 80 or 90, pick up another pick around there, you get a Johnny Wilson. You could get your corner if you didn't get them in the first round. There's Andrew Phillips, Max Melton, who's had a visit with Philly. So you got some potentials there. Get your corner and wide receiver at that point. But, that's also living in a world of Edgerrin Cooper already made it to 50. So
yeah, it's just hard to know. Like, I just don't know where the other 31 teams are in terms of linebacker. Like, linebackers, very few teams need them. Want to spend high draft picks on them, but there's at least 3 or 4 teams between 30 and 50 that are going to want a linebacker, and Cooper's going to be the guy. So, it's like, well, you're going to have to move up to get him. So I think they're going to. My guess is, though, and we all love Cooper, we all love Jeremiah Trotter Jr., right? My guess is that they will, with one of those second-round draft picks, whoever the best linebacker is. If Cooper's there, they'll take him. If he's not, next best linebacker, move on. We got somebody, because they really believe in Nakobe Dean, and they really think Devin White's going to be good. And so maybe in Howie's mind, Edgerrin Cooper's not starting because he has 2 other linebackers there, which is, I think, crazy. But, we got to try and think how Howie Roseman thinks. So it is what it is.
True. Yes.
Flipping the bird. He says, "Sup, guys? I'll get my picks in soon for the draft." There you go. Of course, you have not gotten in on our fantasy draft. Fantasy draft league is the proper word. Just shoot a Venmo to @thePhillySpecial. He'll send you the link to go ahead and join, and then get your picks in, and the winner is going to get a Eagles jersey. What's the second part of this? He says, "Cooper DeJean, round 1, baby. Keep crushing it. Go Birds." Cooper DeJean, very polarizing. He is extremely polarizing in my comment section. I know he is for yours as well. You and I both
everyone's.
like him. I think the problem is if you think of Cooper DeJean as the next great NFL cornerback, he's going to be Patrick Surtain. He's going to be Darius Slay in his prime. You're probably on the side that he's not going to be that good. But if you think of Cooper DeJean as a really great defensive weapon, then you're like me and Josh, and you think that he could be very well utilized and extremely useful in the Vic Fangio defense. I think that's where you go. If you're convinced he's going to be an outside cornerback, you're hesitant, and rightfully so. If you're convinced he's a defensive weapon, a versatile Swiss Army knife, then you're like, hey, at 22, because again, you're not drafting at 10, at 22, he makes a lot of sense.
Yes, totally. And that's right where everyone's at. It's why he's so polarizing, because half of the people are saying that he isn't, and half are saying that he is. So We are in the camp of he is a weapon and you can utilize him all over the field as that hybrid versatility. So we'll see. But I don't know. It is the fascinating part of the draft, as always. I will say, going back to that linebacker comment, though, real quick, I could possibly see, and I don't love this because I know that Howie, and I've gotten comments on this before whenever I was like, hey, Howie could get some depth and have some guys learn from other players and be ready for the following year. And then I get just destroyed for people saying, no, he's going to get guys that are making an impact day one or whatever. But like you said just a little bit ago, take a look at most drafts. Like, not even all first rounders are starters and impact players from day one. So like once we get out of that, I mean, it does make a lot of sense of even saying, hey, you know what? If it's an Edgerrin Cooper or if it's another linebacker, Devin White's only on a 1-year deal. But if you get someone that can play a little bit, but mainly get to play behind an Edgerrin Cooper, and if you really believe in Nakobe Dean or Devin White and Nakobe Dean in like an Edgerrin Cooper, then that's really a best case scenario there, because to Howie's point and really his philosophy is like, hey, I would rather have someone there and get to learn it firsthand than here you go, you're playing, and we can tell you as you're going how you're supposed to be doing it, but you don't get to see it. And so that to me where it's like, yeah, if you get somebody second round, maybe it's Andrew Cooper, hopefully. Junior Colson's the next favorite there. I know some people Jeremiah Trotter Jr., but for me, it's Junior Colson. But then maybe, if you have Jeremiah Trotter Jr. possibly after that. But yes, I'm going to be upset if we don't get linebacker fairly early, because we do need that, even with Devin White, because he's only for a year.
Elaine Ostrander. Sorry, Elaine, if I butchered that. Tom and Josh, the conferences today that the Eagles had, the players seemed so excited. It was a great look. It was a good look. Everyone seemed excited.
Heck yeah.
It's also at that point in the offseason where, the Eagles haven't, been doing football-y things, at least as a team, since, beginning of January when we got embarrassed by the Bucs. So they've been away from it for long enough to where they're ready to come back and getting back with the guys. It's fun. And the NFL locker room is something that keeps players, staying in the league. It's something that Jason Kelce said he's going to miss most, besides the Super Bowl ring that he apparently lost at a live showing of the New X podcast. It's a different story. But either way, they missed the locker room, and I think that everyone was pumped just to be back with the boys, working out and having a bunch of fun, which is, pretty great. So, Mateo, he says, hallelujah, thank you guys. Pray for you guys daily. Thank you for being constant in my life. You have no idea. We appreciate that very, very much so.
Yeah, that means a lot.
That was very nice. Let's see here. We got a couple more, and we're going to wrap things up here. Cooper DeJean will be a dog regardless what team picks him. I'm confident in that. What's the first 4 positions you guys would draft? Biggest need right now, in my opinion, would go pass rusher, cornerback, linebacker, wide receiver, right? I mean, tackle's got to be there somewhere. Maybe tackle ahead of wide receiver.
You can go tackle ahead of wide receiver, possibly.
Sure, but pass rusher, corner, linebacker, in that order is 1, 2, 3.
I'm a little bit different
right now.
Same positions, but I would go corner personally. I would go corner, linebacker, or pass rusher.
Okay.
And then the other one, linebacker or pass rusher. And then take your pick. You want to tackle, receiver, kind of up in the air. But yeah.
Fair question. This is a question. I don't know who this is. Paige Harris says, are you more excited for the draft or the wedding? I think she assumes my own wedding.
Interesting.
That's a tough one.
I don't know. That's a familiar name? Is that?
Yeah, I don't recognize it. I don't recognize it at all.
That's another one of those trick questions. Don't answer.
That's a trick question. Yeah, the comment section, I'm sure. My real life comment section will be absolutely obliterated based on how I answer this one.
Yeah, be careful.
I would say my own wedding is what I'm more excited for on May 3rd.
There you go.
Is that the right answer?
Congratulations. Yes. You win. That is the correct answer.
Although, just to be clear, I made sure my wedding did not take place on NFL draft weekends. We would not have this issue, because that would be absolutely horrible. And then I would not be a very good husband, because I would be very focused on the NFL draft. So thankfully, the draft is the weekend before my wedding, and that was the right move. So yes.
It's perfect timing. Yes. You planned it very well. And answered it correctly.
And Josh is in my wedding. For those, we said it last week, for those people who think that Josh and I are just YouTube pals, Josh is in my wedding. So there you go. We get to hang out in person. That'd be fun too.
Yes, that will be. It's
and you are. We actually made the groomsmen standing chart. You are a little further down the line because you're like 9'8", so I don't want you to make me look like a dwarf. So you're further down the line.
Fair.
About halfway. About halfway. I had the two shortest guys right next to me because we got to make sure we don't look like I'm 5'9" like I actually am. So very important. Very important.
That's fair. Yeah, but no worries.
All right, one or two more questions. We're going to wrap things up here. You've never met Josh in person. He's like 6'3". He's absolutely giant. And I am not, so that's just how it works. Let's see. Can't believe you took too long. You took that long to answer, says Charles Lawrence. Yeah, I'm going to hear about that. Don't worry. I'm going to hear about that one for sure.
Oh, my gosh.
Steven said, bro, don't answer that. She won't be at the wedding if you answer it honestly. So, yeah. DKT says no video that day. Yes, there will be no video on my wedding day. Unfortunately, unfortunately there will be no video there.
Unless there's like a sneak out real quick and
could be. Breaking news! Eagles
going live in the tux. It's Eagles signed Justin Simmons. Here you go.
I mean, come on. How could I not go live if that happened? Come on. Jeez, I'd be itching.
That'd be crazy.
Man, this is tough. Okay. All right, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up here. We're right about an hour. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us here on a Wednesday. Next Wednesday is the night before the draft. We'll be live Wednesday night, then we're live Thursday night, then we're live Friday night as well. So, again, if you have not gotten subscribed, notification bell, the NFL Draft, our live show on Thursday night, is going to be a ton of fun. We had a blast last year, and we're faster with the picks than ESPN is because ESPN has to go through the whole broadcast stuff. We're watching Twitter, and we give you guys the picks first. If you want to know the picks before anyone else does, is the link to go ahead and watch. So we appreciate you guys. It's a lot of fun hanging out. Be sure to watch our shows this week. Josh's comes out probably tonight, mine tomorrow morning, as usual. For Josh Davis, I'm Thomas Mott, and we will see you guys in the next one.
We'll see you. Go Birds.